From the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between, this is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game. Here we go. It's another edition of the 50/50 Podcast. I am proud. We are back. It's been probably our longest. It is not even probably our longest hiatus since we started. So 2 months, but lots of changes, and I'm excited to be back. And we have I got a first time event here where we got a live coaches panel. We're joined by not one, not two, but three new 6A coaches across the state of Texas. Two on the opposite ends of the DFW Metroplex, and then one much closer to me down here, my neck of the woods, down in San Antonio area. Gentlemen, how are you?
Excellent.
Good.
Yeah, doing great. Good to be on.
All right.
You forgot to mention that you're also a new coach, though.
I am, and we'll get to some of that. We'll get to some of that a little bit later. But yeah, I'm excited to be joined by three colleagues, right? Three professionals who I have a ton of respect for, and have been doing this coaching thing for a while, and really excited to have them on here. They are Coach Alexi Upton of now the Royce City Bulldogs, right? Coach Alexander Adams of the Timber Creek Falcons, right? That's going to take a little getting used to, right? And then our newest member of the head coaching fraternity, Coach Justin Johnson, head women's soccer coach of the San Antonio Churchill Chargers. Welcome, gentlemen. Before we dive into anything and I start peppering you guys with questions, just tell me, life of a new coach, you take over a new program. It's kind of, you try to keep it as organized as possible, but we all know it's chaos. How are things?
Let's let the new guy go first. Let him answer it.
Yeah, you guys.
I'll hop in. It's been good. The assistant from before is staying on with me, and she's fantastic, Coach Bettis. So she's helping me kind of get my feet wet and get to know the community a little bit better, helping me set up meet and greet to see the girls on Friday and meet their parents. And so it's been great. We started camp. We already had our soccer camp 2 weeks ago, and we're in strength conditioning right now. And slowly but surely, we're getting more and more girls showing up. So I'm excited to put my own kind of stamp on the program.
Alexi?
Yeah, I mean, it's just transitioning from school to school. Like you said, it's really disorganized a little bit. You had a set thing that you did kind of where you were at, and then you're kind of transitioning into somewhere new where you're trying to set your precedent and trying to get guys and kids to show up. And but it was really good. I had my first day of strength and conditioning today, and had 45 guys there. Great numbers for first day. A lot of kids that seem really interested in wanting to be a part of the program. So
yeah,
it was a great first day. So
yeah, and a big shout out to my fellow co-host in Rafa Castorena, who is not here with us today, obviously, who jumps in when he can on the 50/50 podcast side of the house. He is definitely my co-host on Inside Texas High School Soccer. So big shout out to him, Rafa. Great to hear from you, buddy. And then, of course, Coach Adams. Alex, how are things you're probably, I think, the most, no, I think Coach Johnson is the most recent hire of this group, but you're not too far behind. How are things for you?
It's good. It's it's a change, but I believe a good change. It's a good challenge. Got to meet all my most of my girls that are going to be on the team this next year. We had our camp the first week that we were out of school, so I got to meet some future Falcons, and I got to meet some of the freshman class that's coming in. So that was exciting to see what we got coming up. And this week we start same thing. We start our coming back and working out and doing our skills and open field stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get after it again. I think these girls are going to buy into what we're about, and I can't wait to get after it and see what they're about.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Let's get this one going on the honorary energy drink, right? Salud, boys. All right.
Excited.
So, one of the things, settling into the new job, right? What has been maybe the thing that has so far, right? Whether it was that introduction, that first interaction with the with student athletes, maybe what what has that been like for so far? Has it been from your perspectives, obviously, Alexi and Alex, you're coming from existing head coaching positions. Justin, you're taking the reins, right? Going from assistant to head. What have those experiences been like so far? Have they been kind of anything like what you expected, or not, or totally different? We'll start with Alexi.
Yeah, I think just the transition from your old group to your new group is probably the biggest challenge. I mean, you had a collective of kids that you loved dearly, and you loved your community that you're at, and I mean, I'm sure Adams is kind of in the same boat, and then you kind of just go somewhere else, and you're like, man, what a chapter in my life that I have to close and then kind of open a new one. And so, really, I think that's probably just the biggest piece of adversity. I mean, the kids are kids. I mean, you walk into the next program and they're going to want to play for you and they're going to want to get after it, just like your kids that you had. So,
Right.
no, really like fight back or any kind of problems like that. Just closing the chapter. I think is probably the hardest part for sure. So,
Alex.
I think the biggest challenge so far for me is the fact that I'm replacing a coach, Coach May, that has been with the program for quite a while.
mhm.
And it's a relatively new school. I think it's only been around for maybe 15 years or something like that.
I was going to say, has it been that long? 15?
Yeah, maybe
Has it
even
really?
less than
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And to replace a coach that's been there for almost the whole time the program's been a program, I think has been the thing to where I get worried if I'm going to get these girls to believe in me, because they've just they're teenagers and they get comfortable. I think as human beings, being comfortable is something that we look for, right? That being uncomfortable makes us makes us uncomfortable, and I think that's been the biggest challenge for me is just to replace somebody that's been there for a while, and
Hmm.
get the girls to buy into to what I'm about and how excited I am
Yeah.
to coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, Justin? You're probably taking the biggest leap, right? Taking the reins of a well-established historic, for those that don't know, a historic program here in the greater San Antonio area. What is has it been anything at all like what you expected?
Um, I had a good idea of what I was getting into. I know the athletic coordinator there pretty well, Coach Shaw. Been in the same circles for a while, and so we'd been visiting back and forth about the job. So I had a pretty good idea of what I was coming into. I think the biggest thing is just kind of putting my mark on it now. And
Hmm.
Mario Garcia at Warren, the head coach at Warren I was working with, did a great job of giving me autonomy and allowing me to be in charge of large aspects of the program, which I think is making this transition easier. But one of those things was strength and conditioning. So I placed a really, really heavy emphasis on that. And I don't think that I've got full buy-in on that yet at Churchill. And so we're really working to bring those numbers up. I'd like to see a lot more girls coming in. We were
Hmm.
able to go from 7 non-contact soft tissue injuries my first year at Warren to 0 in my last year, and I want to
Nice.
replicate that. So
Hmm.
in order for that to work, I gotta get just consistency in terms of the strength and conditioning. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to implement that.
Yeah. Now you mentioned your time at Warren, which in its own right has been a very much so, right. You talked about your head coach there, a program on the rise over the last couple of years, several years. Um, what one biggest? I know you mentioned the performance side, the strength and conditioning side, but what one biggest piece, kind of in that role as the head assistant there, made you feel like you were ready now to take that leap for Churchill as the head coach?
Like I said, I got to give a lot of credit to Mario Garcia in that you know each step of the way he kept putting just a little bit more on me. and so that made me feel like, it's not going to be too big a leap. I'm not just stepping into the deep end on my own.
Mhm.
He's was really, really good from the get go about including me on all decisions, whether it was varsity or JV, including me in halftime and game planning. And then the biggest thing that maybe non-coaches don't think about is everything that doesn't happen on the field. And so getting to understand how I'm going to handle the money side of things and the SAFCAF, and
Yeah.
what about when we've got that out of town tournament? How do we get the logistics handled for that? And including me in the planning aspect of that has made me feel like
Hmm.
I'll be okay doing it on my own now at Churchill.
Now, are you prepared, Justin? You get to go from the assistant, who's often the best friend, the well loved coach, to now you're in the big seat. You're the head coach now, who's often the bad guy, right? That's the dark side, the head coach. Are you? Do you feel like you're mentally prepared for that?
I got a teenage daughter at home, so I'm used to
Yes,
that
God help us.
already a
Yes,
little bit.
yes. So do I.
Um, but I guess ask me that question again in a year, and I'll let you know if I really was.
Oh yeah, 6 months, a year. What are you talking about? 6 months. So awesome. So now we go back to you, Alexi. Um, you make the biggest jump here, right? Going from 4A to 6A, right? Uh, Anything just in whether beyond just the school size, the enrollment, beyond the obvious, has there been anything that you feel has been a significant? You kind of get the little subtle reminders like, okay, yeah, I'm in 6A now. Do you come across that at any point so far?
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, let's clarify real quick. Adams is probably about 20 kids smaller than us. They're also 4A from going from Salina to where he went. So
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, well,
yeah,
yeah, they're in a
we actually
different
have about
category
30 or
though.
40
Just
more kids than them. So
yeah, yeah, they're well, yeah, but they're just
they're
they're
status. Yeah, they're status.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even think of them as 4A just because in Salina because winning four straight state titles. But yeah, you're right. You're right. You caught me
Yes.
on that
In
one.
terms
Go on.
of, I understand your question 100%. In terms of
Yeah.
moving from a area that is kind of rural, is kind of distant, and
Mhm.
coming into kind of more and more populated city area, yeah, I think it's just, I don't think there's any major change. I really don't. I mean, like I
Mhm.
said earlier, the kids, they're going to want to play for you. They're going to be fired up to have a new coach that's excited. I mean, they can go on, Facebook and Twitter and see like, oh man, like, this guy's won some stuff. He's involved. He cares a lot about kids. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't see any really drawback or any like hesitation from anybody over there. I think the change is just literally the change. Like, I think that's the hardest part, is just actually making the jump, making the move, and actually going and doing it. So,
So if I remember this correctly, did you tell me that you went from one indoor facility campus to another indoor facility campus? Is that right? Did you?
I did go from indoor facility to indoor facility.
Yeah, I hate you. I hate you.
So hey, Sulphur Springs is one of the most
Oh,
gorgeous
absolutely,
indoor
absolutely.
facilities in the state of Texas. I mean, like,
Yeah.
we're one of, I think, only like 6 schools with a full size one. So
Well,
you
that's
can't.
why I asked you.
Yeah,
That's why I asked you that because I was like, I was about to ask, it's like, hey, are you okay with giving up that indoor, that space? But
yeah,
then I was like, wait a minute, I think you have one at Royce.
yeah, we
So yeah.
actually downgraded a little bit. The Roy City one's only like 70, 80 yards, but I mean,
Oh,
I'm
my
not.
heart bleeds for you. My heart bleeds for you.
But I'm not complaining. I mean, I
Yeah.
think they have some
It
really
sounds
special.
like you're complaining, man. It's
No, I'm not.
like,
Not one bit. They got some really special facility things going on there.
right.
Right across from the Buc-ee's is kind of cool, and that's fun to
Yeah.
see every day. And there's so much crowd, and
Yeah.
then they're building 2 brand new turf facilities right outside of their stadium, so there will be
Hmm.
3 fields of turf.
Oh, nice.
So we'll be able to practice as much as we want, and the facilities will be incredible. So
Sounds like you're lining up for a future tournament. I can already
big,
tell. I see it
big
in your
time,
eyes.
big
I see
time.
it.
I'm not going to do it in year 1, but year 2 it's coming. So
Hey, by the way, shout out to make sure your athletic coordinator, right? Make sure your football coach, make sure
yeah,
he hears this, make sure he gets on here, make sure he gives us some love. I did see him today on Dave Campbell's, right? He was being interviewed today, right?
cool.
By the legendary Matt Stepp. So shout out to Roy City, kind of all over the place in the house on
Yeah.
the podcast in Texas. So okay, well done. Now, why? So here's the interesting one, right? What I want to ask all of you. We'll start with Coach Adams because this might be the most intriguing one, right? Is
Mhm.
why the move, right? What we get it. Some of it is professional, some of it is personal. But when you're assessing these things, right? And Coach Adams just came off of making Texas high school soccer history when becoming the first program to win 4 consecutive state titles. So for all of you though, but why? We'll start with you, Coach Adams. But why the move?
Well, I'll tell you, to go off of what Lexi and you guys were just talking about, our indoor at Timber Creek is actually bigger than the one at Salina. So
Oh, there you go. There you go. There you go. Shout out.
I upgraded there. So it's so that was a cool surprise. But with me, a lot of people know out there that I've been driving far away to get to work, and after a while that kind of wears down on you. And I got a lovely wife and 13-year-old young daughter that I want to wring her neck sometimes.
Oh, you have a teenager too. I thought she was a couple years younger. Oh, wow. Okay.
But it's good to be closer to home. That's a big part of it. A part of it's the challenge. I think that every single one of these coaches here would agree that to go to a new place and kind of hit the reset button and be able to put your fingerprint on on a different program and see what you can do. That I think with 6A, the expectations become a little bit different just because with how deep every team is, there really is no team that's out there, like a Frisco Wakeland or a Salina that's year in and year out going in and is, going to be a state champion. You think every year it's tough, in 6A. And I think that's exciting, to be in a tough district where, South Lake Carroll's in our district. So they just had the Fuller sisters go through there. Keller's a solid school, Byron Nelson. I mean, the list just keeps going on. And, to get into a district where, or Salina, God bless some of them, but that district isn't as deep as the district I'm going into now. And I'm excited for that. Some coaches would see that as, and I guarantee there's probably been people out there that are thinking, what the heck is this dude doing? He's sitting there on Easy Street, he gets to pretty much kick his legs up through district. And then, you get ready for the playoffs. And I as a professional, I love the winning and everything and all that, but I want that challenge. It's I can't remember who was the one that said it on the Chiefs, where he had won the Super Bowl, and when he was being interviewed, he said, I'm really excited to be a Super Bowl champion, but now that it's happened and I've reflected on it, getting here was what fired me up. He said once it happened, it was almost like, all right, that's kind of how he was talking about it. That's we won, but
I don't know. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm not used to hearing Super Bowl speeches.
Right.
So I'm sorry. So yeah, you lost me on that one. But
right. Being a Browns fan, that's,
but Coach, I'll take your word for. I guess eventually you can get sick of winning state titles, is what I heard. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I kid.
Yeah, I that'll never get old. And I I wouldn't have gone to a program where if I didn't believe that eventually we could possibly compete for that, I wouldn't have taken the job. I really think that we got a chance to do something special there, and it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of buy-in, but I'm excited for the opportunity to go and do that.
Yeah. And Rafa, in case you didn't know, Coach, Rafa chimes in here and reminds you that Region 16A is a gauntlet when it comes to the playoffs. Just in case you didn't know that. So.
I mean, honestly, like from the first round on, you really don't. There's no. You look at the brackets. There's no break.
Yeah, Region 1 and Region 2, man. It's just it's incredible, pretty incredible. So now, Coach Johnson, why in your case, right? You had a different set of circumstances, right? Why you made the assessment. There was definitely, full disclosure, there were lots of great high vis opportunities, great job opportunities in the San Antonio area, all around the same time frame. What made you want to make this jump? Why the move?
Well, these guys mentioned a little bit of time with family, and that was a big part of it for me too. I've been coaching football for the last however many years I've been doing this, and which I always thought was kind of funny because I didn't play football growing up. It was one of those things that whenever I started coaching, they said, "Great job, you coach football too."
Welcome to Texas, sir.
That takes a lot of time, and so the opportunity to get to just focus on soccer, which is really my love anyway, and also get to spend more time with my family has been fantastic. It also gave me the opportunity. I stepped into a role with Premier soccer club here in San Antonio with Daniel Pashog, and
Yes, Daniel.
yeah, lets me get into the club scene a little bit, and so
Mhm.
that's cool, you know.
Yeah, great stuff. And Alexi, what about you? Why the move? You established a regional power there, right? Sulphur Springs, right? You're kind of every over the last couple of years just going a little bit further, state playoff runs, and just a great culture, right? We maybe call you the minister of culture there, maybe out in that region. And then all of a sudden, boom, surprised a lot of people with this move. Why the move?
Yeah, just a little bit about both of them said. It was honestly both of these kind of two reasons right here. I mean, I've done football a lot in my time, so more time with family was an incredible opportunity for me. Um, and to just focus on one singular thing is so amazing. And then a little bit of like what Alexander Adams said is, it's fun to win district, back and forth, but then it becomes a point where you're like, okay, well, where is that next challenge for me? Where is that next step for me to grow as an individual and as a professional?
Hmm.
For me, it was to move to 45 minutes down the road, closer to the Dallas Metroplex and be with Roy City, and really hard district as well. Both the Forneys, both the Rockwalls, Longview, Tyler Legacy. A really good district as well. I mean, we finished sixth. My boys did in the year that previous. But I think there's some talent there that we can definitely step into, and there's a lot of kids that are really eager to go win. When I've
Hmm.
had some conversations and some phone calls with some of the guys that we've already had, I mean, they're just like, "Hey, coach, we want to win. Like, what do we need to do to win?" And that's awesome. That's what you want to hear and see from kids. And so um, there was just too many positives. I think, you make the positive negative list in your head and on paper. And when there's 25 positives and there's one negative, and the only negative is that you got to tell your kids that you had that you got to move. Like that was it, but other than that, it was nothing but positive. And so for me, it was a really great professional opportunity. It was just something I couldn't pass up on. So.
Awesome. Now, when you guys were going through obviously you're prepping for the interview process, you're doing your research, you go through the actual interview itself, right? What was maybe something that you stumbled across? Maybe it was in the interview, maybe it was shortly there after the interview, maybe it was a second follow up interview, right? But what was something that you learned about your new role, right? Your new job, your new program that kind of made you step back, that took you by surprise? Something you really didn't know going in.
Oh, I'll go first because mine's really good. So when I accepted the job and I'm getting into some things, emailing some people, things like that. I looked on Max Preps and I'm like, let's see what's going on with these guys. And so, I'm scrolling. Okay, last year we didn't have a winning season. Okay, scrolling. Okay, we didn't have another winning season. I'm scrolling. Um, we've had one winning season since 2006. And
Wow.
so it's a program that's been out of the air in the area, and it's been kind of struggling to just be right on that cusp. They're right outside of the Metroplex. They're still trying to get the influx of kids that are kind of, slowly branching out of the Dallas Fort Worth area, but they play in tough districts constantly, and so
Hmm.
they're in a dogfight 24/7. Maybe they haven't had necessarily the right soccer leadership kind of guy. Just a combination of factors, but I think there's talent there, and I think there's good kids there. But looking at that was something that shocked me because, I just came off of, 5 winning seasons. I had 21 wins this year. And so, they were like, hey, you haven't won a winning season. You've had one winning season in 15 years. And you're like, whoa, what?
Right.
And so that was shocking. It really was. And, it
Yeah.
was something that caught me off guard. But I think those are the kind of opportunities that you look at as a
Right.
coach. If you're somebody that wants to influence things, like, well, great, good. We have no prior expectations. We have no history. Let's go make our own history. So
Hmm.
I'm really excited about that, and I think it's an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. Justin, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I actually had a similar process where we're looking through it, and from the San Antonio area, you think of Churchill as one of the juggernauts, and they haven't been as of late. But to me, that's something that's really, really exciting because I think it's a great community. The Booster Club so far has been amazing.
Hmm.
The support from administration has been awesome. So there's a support system in place to build this team back up to where I think they can be, and that opportunity is really, really exciting. But kind of a big surprise for me in the interview process, I didn't realize going into is I started my career as a teacher and a coach at Driscoll Middle School in Northeast ISD, which
Mm,
is shutting its doors this year.
right. Right.
But
Sad stuff. Yeah.
yeah, but it's really really cool that I was going through, and as I'm walking through the front office during my interview, then I see one of the assistant principals, a science teacher that I used to work with at Driscoll, and then further down the hall, another science teacher's moved into the biology wing, and the new principal taking over is Miss Murek, Lori Murek, that I had the opportunity to coach her sons when they were in middle school. And so there's been a lot of fun connections that I've made from my very, very first teaching and coaching job moving into this new position. So that's been a nice surprise.
Yeah, and I got to give you a shout out, Coach Johnson. I think you might be the first coach that we've had on the podcast with the map of the U.S. and the world in the background. So I love that, man. Just a nice little piece there. Nice little piece. I love that. Alex, what about you?
Um, well, with me, I had a couple of surprises. Number one, we graduated a few girls, and then we got one girl that's leaving early to go play at Oklahoma State. Um, but other than that, we're bringing back quite a few girls, and I think uh, that's something that'll I think help the team because that chemistry is going to already be there, and so that's one less thing that we'll have to work on is gelling as a team, and we can kind of get into more of the technical stuff and everything right off the bat than trying to work out chemistry. So that was one, and then another one just coming from talking about small school that having a booster club is something I'm really excited about. That when I was at Garland, I got to experience that. Having a booster club, and then the smaller schools tend to have different scenarios that control all that. So to go to a school where I can now do my own fundraising and you know uh, have access to a booster club and a support system there is something
Mhm.
I'm really excited about.
So I guess educate me here. Are those really not a thing at the 4A level? Are they kind of just non-existent, or is
I-
it just hard to come by, or
I'll
what's
answer
going on
that
there?
question for Alexander Adams because
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say what
Yeah, I
I
mean, this is for both of you, right? Coming from
because I think he was politely saying what they're very dominated by one sport,
Mm,
typically. You know what I mean, and not in any disrespect to anybody, but they're
right,
just
right, right.
typically dominated by one sport. And at least where we were at, we at least got to see some of that in some form or fashion. For us, it was transferred into paying for Huddle because I don't know if you know, but Huddle's crazy expensive. It's wicked expensive. It's like 5-6 grand or something like that if you get the highest package. Um, so they use that to pay for everybody's Huddle accounts and things like that, and some other small projects.
Hmm.
So we got to see, we did. It was nothing that we saw, but it was some things that got handled for us. So that was helpful. But to him, it's not anything that you control. And so to go somewhere like a 6A where it's like, hey, this is your soccer booster. Like you can go raise your money however you want. You can spend it however you want. We trust
Hmm.
you. Go do your thing. I think is a really cool opportunity for us because that's not something that we really ever got to be a part of. So.
Yeah, awesome, great, good deal. So, all right, I ask kind of the semi-loaded question here is from what you're learning about your personnel so far, right? And you're still kind of opening up some of the cupboards and trying to see what you got there. What can we expect from your respective programs in year one? Right, it's going off of everything you know up to this point. What can we expect from your programs in year one? Justin, we'll start with you.
Yeah, we're returning a really good core. We are losing our leading goal scorer from last year, and so the biggest question mark that we probably need to find right now is who's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And I think it's probably going to be a collective effort. It's not going to be a single person that just steps into the role. Um, but by committee, we're going to find a way to put that ball in the back of the net. But I'm really really excited with the returning core. It was a program that was only able to get 2 district wins last year, and I think we're capable of more. And so I think
Yeah.
there's some games that there's opportunities to steal some games, to steal a point here and there from some of the bigger teams in the district. It's a really really tough district, but if we can put together a good run, then there's an opportunity for us to start sniffing at the playoffs. That's the goal for year one is can we at least get in the conversation?
Yeah, you talk about, oh my God, I'm trying to, is it 29? 29 6A?
Yeah,
The classification now, is it 29? Is that right? So yeah, that is has historically been considered over probably the last, what I would say, the last four maybe realignment cycles, has been without a doubt been considered the toughest district in the greater San Antonio area. So, yeah, I mean, you got your hands full obviously in that district, but it's never been an issue for Churchill. It's never been an issue of being competitive, right? It's been more a matter of actually just finishing matches from what I've seen, from what I've heard in the past. So yeah, so definitely with you on that one. So, Coach Adams.
Um, we're returning. Both my assistant coaches that were there last year are coming back. So as far as the staff is concerned, we're going to be pretty solid. And the two coaches that I inherited are wonderful young ladies. So one of them's coaches club, and one of them played college soccer. So to go, from having a football coach as an assistant to having two assistants is real exciting. Um, so I'm real excited about that. I'm also excited again about having our a core group of girls that are coming back that I feel is going to be able to do some things. You look at last year, they tied the first round through district. They tied South Lake Carroll 1-1.
I
So
saw that. I saw that.
to have that happen says that it's there, and if they're hanging with South Lake, they can hang with anybody in the state. And everybody here on this panel knows that South Lake is one of the standards. They're up there with Prosper as far as being the 6A girls powerhouse. So if we can do that, then I think we can go and make some noise this year. So
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And a shout out there to my buddy Rafa. Also, good catch on that. Thank you for fact checking me on that. 27-6A, 27-6A. So, uh, yeah, and Alexi.
Yeah, I think my answer is kind of a little bit of both of these guys. Mine's kind of like Justin, where we weren't very good. I think they were like 5-8-4, and they had 2 or 3 district wins, and so the expectation is to go into a program like that and try to make them be a playoff team. Get them out of their 6th, 7th place spot and get them into the playoffs and be in the top 4. So I think that's the expectation that the kids want as well. I've talked to a couple kids, like I said, and they're, hey coach, we want to be a playoff team. Hey coach, we want to be have that experience. And so, really excited to go somewhere and get kids across the line and give them something that they want. And then kind of, like Coach Adams said, just to see a new different staff of coaches. I worked really, really hard at Sulphur Springs. I had a full staff of 4 soccer coaches. And that's something that you don't see
Wow,
really
that's insane.
anywhere in
The
4A.
4A, that's insane. Yeah.
You don't see it because, but I worked 3 or 4 years to kind of just go one coach at a time and build that. And so I had a full staff of, varsity assistant, JV1, JV2. So, but it took me a lot of time, and I'm not really upgrading staffs necessarily. I'm kind of, it's kind of even in that, kind of just transferring over, but
Hmm.
just to get the opportunity to go 6A and go to a more competitive environment is
Yeah.
really, really cool. So.
Now that's a perfect segue into what I was just about to ask, right? Because Coach Johnson and Coach Adams have kind of hit on it, right? And it's a vital piece, but assistants, right? Assistant coaches. There is, I mean, a massive advantage when you can come in and there's a certain level of continuity there with assistant coaches in place who are well established, can kind of give you the lay of the land a little bit more on some players and the program. They have a good idea of the pulse of where things are. Now, Alexi, I don't know. Is it turning over an entire staff, or are you coming in with
Yeah.
some assistants?
No. I wanted to elaborate on that. That's really good. I'm going to shout out to my guy. His name's Owen Stanfield. He was the JV coach, and now I'm going to promote him hopefully to my varsity assistant when I get there. And he is great. In the first day of summer workouts that we had today, hey, this is this guy. Hey, this was his role last year. Hey, kind of giving you the lay of the land, like you just said. And so I think that's really awesome when you have one guy that's kind of stayed a part of the group from the former group, is because he knows all the kids, he knows all the tendencies, he knows the work ethic, the ins and outs, what they do in the classroom, all those kind of things. And so I think that's huge. And then I got to bring one of my guys with me to come with me to Royse City. So it's kind of a guy that knows my expectations and what I want out of a program. So I think that's a really good mix. And then the fourth guy that we got is a guy out of the classroom He's done some collegiate stuff and some overseas stuff, so he's a big time soccer
Nice.
player guy. So I think we have a really incredible staff of four. And like you said, Coach Adams, it's really cool to have four people that you say like, man, this guy is just as quality as me. You know what I mean? Like, or they're just as good as me. That it really means a lot to help your program push in the right directions.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, right? Between some in place, and then you're bringing one of your own as well. So that's awesome.
100%.
Yeah. So the interview process, right? We talk about that for some of our coaches that are listening, right? That maybe they're thinking about, because there's still some openings. There's definitely still some openings across the state of Texas. We're seeing it across all jobs, right? All sports, I should say. But whether it be particularly the head coaching role, right? Take us through some of our coaches that may be listening. They kind of want to know a little bit more about the interview process. What was it like in terms of your from application to preparation to interview to post interview to notification of the job? What did that? How long was that? What did that look like? We'll start with Justin. We'll start with you, Coach Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly a pretty quick process for me with this hire. Honestly, with every hire that I've been through, and I think that one of the things I've learned in the coaching community is stay in touch, be a good person, because the connections are huge.
Yep.
And so having positive connections with coaches across multiple sports in the past, I think probably afforded me some great opportunities in this hiring cycle. And as you mentioned earlier, there was a lot of opportunities here in the San Antonio area.
Mm-hmm.
And Churchill was a fantastic one that we ended up with. But I think something to keep in mind through the hiring process is it's typically not a soccer guy that's interviewing you. So whenever you go into that soccer interview, even though you live and breathe soccer,
Great point.
you're not there to talk X's and O's. You're there to talk about the program. You're there to talk about how we're going to keep grades up. You're there to talk about discipline. You're there to talk about logistics, how you're going to help the culture of the school. So I think just keep in mind that it's a lot bigger than the X's and O's of soccer.
Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. Coach Adams?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think anytime you're dealing with kids, what you're bringing to a program, as far as your culture, your mentality, your, maybe your coaching, I don't know what you call it, like agenda or what's your coaching statement, right? Whatever, whatever it is that you're about, you need to make sure that you're in there and you're confident. That people can pick up on whenever they're talking to somebody if they're really not about what they're about. So I definitely would maybe rehearse some things that you're going to say, because sometimes you have all these great ideas going through your head, and then the moment you get in front of a panel of like 7 people, right? It can be intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're going in, you're being yourself. I think not being yourself is another. I think something where you could cost yourself a job, but go in with confidence and make sure that you show them what it is that you're bringing to the table. Because I think with me personally, I was able to get everybody excited about Keller Timber Creek soccer, and I think building off of Coach May's legacy is what they were looking for, and I hopefully am able to do exactly what I sold them on in the interview. The fact that culture is a big deal, and my girls are going to have the best grades out of all the programs in the school, and your plan for that. All that stuff that you talk about, you better make sure and know that. Well, how do you plan on doing that? Because that's definitely one of the questions that they fire back on is, you got this great idea. Well, where's the substance? Where
Right.
you're gonna, what are you gonna actually do? So I think that's a big part, is to go in there and have a plan and don't be afraid to write stuff down. That's one thing I think that I was a little bit younger, is that I felt that maybe if I was writing stuff down, that maybe people were thinking that I was rehearsed and stuff, and I kind of realized that I don't think that's necessarily the case. That again, to go in there and remind yourself what it is that you're about in front of a bunch of people is important.
Now you're replacing, in your case, Coach Adams, you're replacing a longtime beloved coach, but yet the other part of it is you're going into that room and right committee of seven, right, a 7 member panel, what have you. How much of it? I mean, how much of it was it the 1,000 pound gorilla in the room or whatever elephant in the room in terms of, we got a 4-time state champion coach in here. How much of that was that either like could you feel it or they alluded to it at some point or it was kind of like, okay, where, why is this guy really here kind of thing? Was that kind of there out in the open or not really?
Well, I think everybody was aware, going in as to what I had accomplished, and and I really feel that it was definitely mentioned a couple of times, but really lightly. I really think that they were interested in what what I was about and my personality and what I plan to do with the kids and kind of my coaching mentality and all that. So I think it was definitely that's something that's going to be followed on my resume the rest of my life, and
Right, right.
blessed that I was lucky enough to do that, because that's definitely opened up some doors for me
Hmm.
my coaching career. But I hope that people see, and I really think that it does become a factor of, okay, you've won championships. What else can you do for kids? And I think that's a
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah, yeah. Alexi?
Yeah, I mean, these guys really hit it on the nail. I mean, I think the two buzzwords are culture and then authenticity. Be yourself. Be yourself. Go in there and be yourself. Not to where like Coach Adam said, not to where you get fired or anything, but go in there and be yourself and sell yourself. That's what people want to see. I've had 4 or 5 interviews even in my time in Sulphur Springs because I've kind of wanted to look around and just see what people provide, and then I always found my way back to Sulphur because it just wasn't what I created in Sulphur Springs. And so I was like, nah, I'm good. I have a perfect place here. And it wasn't really what I wanted at the moment. And so um, I think if you're just authentic and you be yourself and you show hey, this is what I provide, this is the culture that I provide to my program. I think a lot of people see that and they're like, okay, cool. We like that. Those are the things that we're looking for. And then my one piece of advice would be to just ask questions. I don't think anybody asks questions as much as we probably should,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because we get in a panel of 5, 6, 3, 4 people, whatever, and they're like, "Hey, do you have any more questions?" And you're like, "No, I'm good. We're good. Let's get out of here."
Yeah.
You know, everybody's guilty of it, and I actually try
Or
to do.
what I've often found is you don't have enough time to ask questions back, right? Because in some cases it's like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. If they're interviewing a slew
Couple
of
people,
candidates back
yeah.
to back to back to back, they're trying to go through them scripted quickly, right? So yeah, you're dead on very
Yeah,
much.
but just ask some questions. I probably write like 4 or 5 down before I even walk in the door.
Hmm.
And then, like Coach Adam says, like I'll take some notes and I'll probably write like 2 or 3 more as like my kind of thoughts go through what they tell me about their city and town and program and soccer team and things like that. I'll write 2 or 3 more, and then towards the end, I'll try to get all 6 or 7 or 8 of them and
Hmm.
have the time I'm going to ask the questions, because I think it's two things. One, it's a peace of mind for you as an interviewee to get those questions answered, so you know what you're getting yourself into. But for them on the other side of the ball, I think that they love to see people that ask questions. I think that makes you really stand out from the other person. I mean, if I bring in a paper and Coach B brings in a paper and we talk about our paper, and then afterwards I follow up with 5 or 6 more questions and he follows up with 0, they see it as this guy's really invested in coming here and being a part of
Right.
this program.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's what I would recommend to a lot of coaches. Have
Hmm.
4 or 5 questions down of what you want to, ask, and then try to ask 2 or 3 more, and just show that you care a lot about your next step and that you want to go
Right.
somewhere special. So,
Yeah. Awesome. We'll come back to this, Coach Johnson, with you on this one. Did you know, like being humble, of course, but still, what was the gut feeling you had coming out of that interview? Was it like, man, I think I nailed that. I think that's like, I think they are definitely highly interested in me, or I think it's my job to lose. Or was it kind of like, hey, I did solid, but I felt like I did pretty good, but I'm just not quite sure. Or did you come out of there kind of shaky, not knowing how to get a read on people? It can kind of be all over the place, right? So how did you feel coming out of that interview?
Yeah, I mean, I'm no reason to lie about it. I felt pretty confident coming out of the interview. I feel like things went really well. These guys talked about the importance of asking questions, and there was definitely a turning point in the interview where it felt like I was directing the interview more so
Mm,
than those that were interviewing me. And I think when you get to that point of it, then that raises your confidence level a lot, just because you realize that they're interested in you, and they're trying to sell the school to you. And once you feel that response coming back from administrators and head coaches, then it allows you to feel really confident coming out of the interview.
yeah. Alexi, come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he nailed it on the tooth about them selling the school to you. When you have a panel of 3, 4 people and you're asking the questions and they're like, oh, we can get this for you, or we can do this for you, or we can do that for you. You feel really good about yourself in terms of, I've got kind of, a good thing maybe in my hands. And, for me, the really funny part of that question was I did my interview process, and it was, the 10 questions or so, and it took, 45 minutes to an hour. And then they were like, hey, do you want to, walk around the school? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, why not? And so we walk around the school, and anyways, it started at like 9, and I got done at like 11:45 or 12. I mean, it was 3 hours. It was 3 hours long. And I called like some of my mentors. I got a couple older guys that I kind of lean on as mentors. And I was like, hey, like, is it a good sign if your interview is 3 hours long?
You think? You think?
And they were like, yeah, I mean, typically that can mean that, you did pretty well, or at least
Yeah.
they like you enough to keep you around for 3 hours. And so for me, that was kind of like really shocking. I
Yeah.
like literally looked down at my watch and I was like, oh, wow, it's 12 o'clock. Like I was there for 3 hours. And I even called my
Yeah.
wife and said the same thing. I was like, that was 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, like Justin said, I think that's when like, oh, I think this is going to happen for me, because they seemed really interested. They showed me everything. They offered me a lot of things, you know what I mean? Like, and you kind of make that connection. So.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience myself. Yeah, very, very similar, and it kind of makes you wonder, right? It's like either this is a good thing, or or these athletic coordinators just don't want to go back to their office, right? One or the other. So, but now moving on. So, Coach Adams, how about you? Did you feel like, or did you know you already nailed it? You just walked in with your state champion medal into
Yeah.
the interview, or how? I gotta pick on you, man. I gotta pick on you. So,
Yeah, no, I
uh,
know. I'll be honest. So when I was sitting in the office waiting to get interviewed, a guy walked out that you could tell was just interviewed. Whenever I got in there and started talking to the folks there, they said that, they had been in the interviews all morning long, and I was the last one. So that I liked hearing the fact that I was the last one, because
that can be tough too, though. That can be tough.
it can be
Yeah.
tough, but you can also see it as, well, this is my chance to really be fresh on their mind that I'm their choice.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I was excited for that opportunity, and I'll tell you, um, I didn't know if I had got it or not, but when I interviewed with everybody there, that's probably one of the most comfortable interviews I've ever been in, and it really is a test to the personalities of both the boys and girls, my new boys and girls coordinator,
Hmm.
a couple administrators in there, the assistant athletic director was in there, and I felt like that I was sitting around talking with colleagues more than I was being grilled to find out, what they could find out wrong with me. Right?
Hmm.
That's kind of what you feel in the interviews, that crap, that I did I say something stupid, right, to crap the bed. And I really felt that at the end of the interview, I thought, man, like I was thinking, I really hope I get this job, because I like every single one of these people that are in this office.
Yeah.
And to have that feeling of family already,
Mhm.
and
That's
even,
good.
you're not
That's
even
really good.
yet, it was exciting. So
Yeah.
I get the whole state championship thing, and all that, but I feel that that there's still going to be programs they're going to pick based off what they feel is best for their program, and sometimes it may not be me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
No
think
doubt.
that, I
I
think to
agree.
add on Adams 100% about what you said about just going into somewhere where you feel like truly loved and respected. I think that's huge. I mean, when you go into somewhere and they're just like, "Yeah, man, what can we do for you?" Yeah, man, and you're just having like you said, you're just having those organic conversations, and it just feels so
Mhm.
like you just are like catching up with 5 friends that you haven't seen in a couple of years. You know what I mean? Like, I think that if you're talking about giving advice out to coaches, that's the advice. Like when you go into an interview and you get an opportunity like that, where everybody just seems to, yeah, what can we do for you? How can we help you? We want you to win. We want you to be successful. I mean, you got to
Mhm.
take those
Oh, yeah.
opportunities and just grab them with 2 hands and just run out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, so that was, Coach Adams said that was a really big one for me, and that's why I moved, is because all 3 people that were sitting across from me were like so supportive, so caring about what the next step was for me in that program, and so it was really special.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's a big one. Your administrative support, and yeah, I can tell you. I mean, that was one of the big pieces for me in my move right to Canyon, was that just from the athletic coordinator and assistant athletic coordinator to the ISD, AD, the principal, everyone in between. It was kind of full court press, letting that be known as to, hey, this is, that you're wanted, that we want you here. And and the fact that the ambition piece, the professionalism piece as well, but that they're hungry and they want to win the right way, and they have a plan, and you're and then they're letting it be known that you're that last missing piece of the puzzle, the big piece of the puzzle. It's just, yeah, it becomes, at a certain point, it becomes a no-brainer, because this will segue into my next question for you guys. Is oftentimes, we talk about, we've hit on a lot of things, but one big individual piece of advice, right? If you could hit one for coaches, because oftentimes what I tell coaches, there's a couple of coaches that I'm working with right now that I'm helping them through things, and I'm kind of not coaching them up per se, just kind of mentoring them along the way a little bit. And I tell them, it's like, hey, when you are going through this interview, right? Interview, it doesn't matter if it's one or it's a handful of them, right? You'll get better with reps, obviously, but just never forget that even though you are there to be interviewed, you are just as much interviewing them. You don't always have to ask questions or lots of questions, but it's just that piece that we talked about, right? Is like, can I see myself here? Is this, is this, from the administration to the department that I'm going to be teaching in, because that's such a big part of it as well, to obviously to the coaching staff, right? Am I going to have support, right? Am I going to have support? So yeah, so understanding that you're interviewing them just as much as you are being interviewed, right? So a big piece of that. But if you can hit on one thing, one big word of advice for whether it's assistant coaches, right, or head coaches, right, those aspiring head coaches, what would you share with them? We'll start with you, Coach Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, I think to echo what you were alluding to already is it's just about finding the right fit. I think it's really easy, especially early in your career, to think I'm just going to try and go to where I have the best opportunity to win right away. And I don't think that's what's going to make you the happiest as a coach, because coaching is really more relationships than it is X's and O's.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're good at building relationships and and continuing them, then you're going to end up being happy. So find a place that's the right fit for you. Find a place that has the same alignment from a culture perspective as you,
Mm-hmm.
and somewhere that you feel comfortable with your administration and your department, and you're gonna be happy, no matter how talented the group is that you're walking into. You're gonna get to see the growth and the impact that you have, and in the end, that's really what's gonna make you happy.
Yeah, yeah. Alexi.
I mean, I just walk out the door, and I mean, nail pin on the head right there. I mean, beautiful from Justin. I mean, that's it right there. I mean, when you'll know. I mean, that's it to a T. I mean, you're going to go into some interviews and you're going to walk out of that interview and be like, wow, like that was it. I just walked out of it. You know what I mean? And whether it's being an assistant or whether being a head coach. And I called my wife right after it and I was like, hey, that was it. Like, I was like, we might be moving. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, when you know, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, really though, I mean, that's really the truth. I mean, when it's going to feel organic. It's going to feel right. As much as you don't want change, you're going to realize that it's the best thing for you. And so just when you know. So, yep, definitely.
Yeah. Alex.
Yeah, it's something that you have to recognize as a teacher. We're in a really unique profession where in the corporate world, you get sick of your boss or your cube mate or whatever. You can go find a job and be employed somewhere else. In a couple of weeks. And in teaching, you really can't do that. You sign a contract and you're stuck there. For the school year. And it's something that you really, I think, goes a little bit less unfocused, but something you really have to take into consideration. Exactly what Coach Johnson and Coach Upton and you too, Hector, is that chemistry with the staff is huge, because you're with these people for an entire year, whether you like it or not, and you have to make sure that it is something that's going to work, um, or you're going to be miserable, And I know a couple of people that have been in situations like that, and it's no fun, and you feel real bad to have that, where they went to places where they thought they could, do some things with the current personnel there, and then it turns out that that they're having fun with the team, but as soon as they get away from the team, they're miserable, because they maybe don't get along with a principal or whatever. And so I think that's huge. That's definitely something that I would definitely um, recommend, is that try to get get to know the people that you're interviewing with as much as possible, because
Hmm.
that's a huge piece of it. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Administration, man. Yeah,
No doubt,
definitely.
no doubt,
Yeah.
no doubt. I'll never forget when, for the life of me, I can't remember if I was first told it or if I read it somewhere, but we talked about how people, right, not just in our profession in general, but particularly in our profession, is people don't leave jobs, people leave management, right? And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that's so, just so true. So true, so true. So, all right, we transition here a little bit, coaches. We're going to look at a little bit kind of the macro level of our sport, right? Our sport across the state. Thoughts on this is a very, very big one that we're going to kind of dive into and chop up into smaller pieces, but just general thoughts on the state of our sport, Texas high school soccer as a whole. We can look at soccer in general, whether when you start lumping in club there as well. Obviously, there's been recent kind of heated debates on that one, but which always baffles me. But just thoughts on Texas high school soccer as a whole when you look at it right now. We'll start with Coach Johnson. We'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's grown immensely, especially in recent history. And I think that some people still have a mindset that high school soccer is amateur hour, and it's not. High school soccer has grown a lot. There's really, really talented players out there. There's really, really talented coaches, very qualified coaches. And, even from year one till now, with my short career, I've seen such massive growth around the city of San Antonio that every game is great. Even whenever you're going against one of the teams at the bottom of the district, there's been fantastic coaches that I think about Jeanette over at Holmes these past few years. They've struggled in terms of their record, but every time when we played Jeanette over there, I was like, man, she does an amazing job organizing that team, and she makes it
Mhm.
really, really tough to get in scoring position. So, quality coaching and increasing the talent level across the board has made high school soccer growth really, really great in the past few years.
Yeah. When you talk about maybe a San Antonio specific focus, is there anything that really stands out to you from that perspective? Just whether it be growth, development, coaching. Is there anything San Antonio specific that kind of stands out to you? The one that you could say has kind of been maybe a key piece that has really stood out to you?
Um, I've felt since I've started coaching here that San Antonio's almost looked down on a little bit, especially in the girls' side of things. That they're just not quite up to par with the rest of the state. And I think if you look at what's happened over the last couple of years, we're competing. There's quality players here, and we're able to go put up a great contest against anyone in the state. The best teams coming out of San Antonio are really, really quality.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, you think about where the district coming from. Scott Davis has done a great job with Taft and making them, deep playoff runs multiple years in a row now. You've got the Johnson and Reagans of the world in the current district that I'm moving to. They're always poised to make a great run. We're ready to compete with all the other metro areas.
Yeah. 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 You talk about San Antonio, particularly on the girls' side, how they've been more than just competing. I mean, Coach, that was probably one of Coach Adams' biggest nemesis over the last couple of years, where teams out of teams out of the San Antonio area, right? I was at that final, right? That Davenport Salina final, and it was a great match, no doubt. Coach Adams, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. We online the other day it saw that post on that College Soccer Truth where the guy was saying that don't bother posting your high school soccer highlights because college coaches don't care, and I think that's a shame to see that narrative is still out there because it's not it's no longer a we're just going to throw whoever drew the short straw gets to be the girls soccer coach this year kind of a thing because that is
Yeah.
10 years ago that is widely what it used to be. I'll 100% agree that's why that narrative started is because it was like that. But
Mhm.
I think now, especially with how important soccer is to a lot of these families here in the state of Texas, um, they're not going to put up with a crap coach. That's not going to be allowed. And I know for a fact that the parents are going to complain until they get somebody in there that knows what they're doing. Kids talk. They come home and say, "Hey, we did this drill today that I remember doing whenever I was in rec league or whatever." You know, Coaches out there, no lines and drills, right? Uh, so, you're getting to a point. I think now we're between you see a lot of licensing opportunities out there through U.S. Soccer now. The Tasco. I mean, all these different the things that one uh, clinic that Waxahachie high schools. I mean, all these different things that as coaches, they can do to perfect their craft. I think is becoming kind of the standard because people want to see their kids coached by soccer coaches and not the guy that drew the short straw. And I think that's changed, and it was kind of a shame to see that there's still that narrative out there. And I'll tell you this too. I had a girl on my team this past year. It was the ultimate compliment, honestly. That she came to me and she said, "Coach Adams, I'm going to be honest. And she plays the ECNL, and she said, Coach Adams, I'm going to be honest. My coach says that he can't stand high school soccer, and he told her, he said this is the first time that he's ever seen a girl improve during her high school soccer coaching season. And I know as a coach that I'm not the only one out there doing that. It's not just me doing that. I know for a fact that that's not just me doing that. And it's a shame that so many people have this agenda that soccer coaches at the high school level, if they're not coaching an ECNL team or a college coach, then they're trash, and that's just a shame that's the case because I think those days are over with. I think soccer coaches in our state really take it very seriously, and I know for a fact they do. I mean, Lexi, you look there, he's got what B license or something like that. I mean, he's way up there in his coach. I've got a few coaching license, and I take it very seriously, and I know that everybody around the state is the same way, and it's a shame to hear that. Whenever we know as all four of us as coaches that it's not the case. This is something that's we plan very purposefully,
Mhm.
analyze film.
Mhm.
We really try to cater our teams to what we have and not to a system. Right? All these things that take an actual soccer coach to do, we're
Mhm.
doing, and yet there's still people out there saying that high school soccer is terrible,
Mhm.
terribly coached.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
and the other piece to that too is that there is no one. I guess a bit of a caveat. There is no one coach, right? Whether it be club or high school, that is the end all, be all when it comes to one of the best parts of our sport is that everyone is allowed to, right, see the game through a different set of eyes. They'll see the game. This is why when you talk with your assistant coaches, it's important, right, to value their input, right,
Mhm.
because they might see something that we don't. Right, that's a good thing. But no one coach, particularly just because maybe they're a club coach, has a higher level of hierarchy in terms of their opinion, right? I think that's important. That's an important piece, right? And I think, for college coaches, this is one of the biggest things that I continue to bang the drum on is yes, obviously we know where you're going to invest more time. A college coach is on the recruiting front directly, maybe on the club side, but at the end of the day, almost 9.9 out of 10 college coaches They may see you at an ECNL event. They may see you at an ECRL event. They may see you at a GA or GA Aspire event or whatever. But they're still going to what? They're still going to ask you to come to their ID camp, right? They're going to want to see you on a more intimate level, somehow, some way, somehow. But college coaches, the other thing you got to keep in mind as well is, it is the high school coach, not the club coach that spends, 5 days a week in excess of 8 to 10 hours a week around these student athletes. It is the high school coach that can truly vouch for the character of that student athlete that you might be interested in. It is the high school coach that can vouch for, hey, what is this player, what is the student athlete like in the classroom? What is the student athlete's character like? What is the student athlete like in the weight room? What is the student athlete like in the locker room? Right? It is the high school coach, right? And that's almost, that's over 9 months out of the year. So something that I think that college coaches, right? Because again, their decisions, their livelihood rests on their recruiting decisions as well. Something that I'd like to see college coaches push more with high school coaches. So
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback on that, I think some college coaches are starting to come around. Without dropping any names, but that was a really cool experience I had this past year. Was a college coach calling me and echoing almost exactly what you just said, which was, "Hey, I've already talked to the club coach, but I want to hear from you because you see her every day. You see her every single day. Almost 365 days a year. You see her in the weight room. You see the ups and downs, not just that hour every other day coming to club." And so, they are starting to ask that questions, and that's the
it's good.
more that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more that club coaches can see that we work together. If we work together, we can really create all the pieces of the puzzle because we have more time to work with them in the weight room. We have more time to develop them from a strength and conditioning perspective, more time to work with them in the film room. And so when we can complement that and work together, then really we're creating better overall athletes.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Alexi.
Yeah, I mean, just a lot of things that you guys alluded to, and I think what you said was brilliant about we live in the world of everybody should have can have their own opinion. Everybody can have their own style of play. Everybody can have their own ideology, and so there shouldn't be this like division of like, oh, I'm club and I do it this way, and you're high school and you do it that way. Like, why does it matter? I think that's what's beautiful about soccer is that
Right. Right.
player A gets to go to club and learn how to play this way, and then he comes to high school and learns how to play this way, and then maybe he goes to college and learns how to play another way. But then when he gets out of college, like he's a total all developed player because he's learned under
Mhm.
so many different coaches and so many different philosophies and culture standards and things like that. And so, I like Alexander Adams said, I mean, I have a master's, I have my USSFB license that I'm finishing. I got to hop off this call right now and go to the next one. I'm just kidding. But, I mean, I'm working on that right now. And I'm the only high school coach in that whole class. There's 26 coaches, and I think 19 or 20 of them are club. There's 4 or 5 college guys. And then there's me.
Nice.
There's me and the guy from Faith Family in Dallas, both in that, but we're the only 2 high school coaches. And
Right.
so, I think there's an old negative stigmatism about high school coaches because even those guys, when they had a conversation with me in the USSFB license, they're like, oh man, how's high school coaching? It must be so hard. And, kids don't know what they're doing, and they're just all this negative stigmatism for no reason. And you respond back like, no, it's actually fantastic. I get to see these kids year round. I get to be like
Yeah.
their father to them. I get to enjoy so much time with them. I get paid really well. I get my summer off. I get to, I get to do all these really special things with these kids, and I said some of that to those guys, and you could see them like, man, maybe I should be a high school coach. Like that sounds pretty fun, but they
Right.
like, there's some like dumb precedent in their head that they think that we don't have a good time or we have a hard life or something.
Mhm.
They just hear too much on Facebook and Twitter and all this, and it's like, no, man, it's fantastic. Like,
That narrative, man. That narrative was written in pen for a long, long, long time.
I
Right now,
couldn't
we're trying
imagine
to erase
myself
that.
doing
Yeah.
anything else, man. It is fantastic. Like, I want to
Yeah.
coach till I die. I want to hang out with kids till I die, man. They're fun.
That is
They're
awesome.
enjoyable. I have the greatest time, and I think they feel that experience for an hour or two, twice a week. And we get to feel that experience every single day. And I think
Mhm.
that's what's really cool. I mean, they love the coach, and they don't like, you just get a little small little taste. Like we get to do it all the time, 24/7. And I think that's why the college guys do what they do is because they also are kind of like us. They live with those kids. They spend 24/7 with those kids. Their phones getting blowed up with 47 messages of those kids, just like us. And so I think my piece of advice for that is the coaching in Texas has gotten so much better because of licensings, because of Waco Waxahachie conventions that I'm going to in 2 weeks, because of TASCO, because of THSCA even is better now in the soccer world. And so I think people are starting to come around. They're starting to see qualified coaches like, these three panel of guys right here, where they're like, man, these guys are legit and know what they're talking about in the world of soccer. And so I
Mhm.
feel confident about my kid going there and playing for them. So
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, well said. Very well said. And I think the big thing here too is like it's part of it is to kind of continue to enlighten, I guess, club coaches and college coaches alike, right? But it's not us versus them when it comes to club coaches. I think if you're a club coach listening to this, it's understanding that hey, we're all, we may be on a different, different side of the house per se, but we're still one big soccer family, right? And there is no reason why not only can we coexist, but we can work together. Because if we're really if we're really about what we say we're about in terms of, our student athletes and development and what's best for them, then we got to put them first, right? Not us, not the egos, not the high school side, not the club side, right? But putting them first, right? So, all right, next one. What will you kind of look in your crystal ball here, right? What do you think, or what would you like 5 years from now? What would you like Texas high school soccer to look like, or what do you think Texas high school soccer will look like 5 years from now? So we'll start with Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we continue on the trajectory that we are now, that we talk about with the increased level of coaching and play, then Texas high school soccer is going to be a must see event. And I think that's the next step that I would like to see is greater support from the community. And whenever we can start drawing, a little bit bigger crowd for these guys and girls to play in front of, there's a couple of venues in the state where you can already see it. Right, you go to their home games and the vibe is there, the
Oh yeah.
excitement and the buzz is happening in the stadium. I like to see that across the state where the school communities are showing up and understanding that this is something really special. That's something that you get with high school that you don't necessarily get with club, is that community feeling. And I'd like to really, really foster that aspect of it to where, we're competing and fighting in front of our friends and family and
Hmm.
having their support day in and day out.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a piece, I cannot remember. I don't know if it was the Call It What You Want podcast. I can't remember where I heard this, what podcast, but somebody threw it out there, and this was a professional former, U.S. men's national team player. He had mentioned, and it might have been, I don't know if it was Eric Winalda. I can't remember for the life of me who it was, but they threw out something randomly that I had never thought about in terms of club and high school, where on the club side, unfortunately, right, you go to most of those games, showcases, what have you. It's typically parents, and in some cases you have a lot of college coaches, right, depending on the showcase, depending on the event, and that's it, right. But it's not a it's a they said, I think the exact words were, it's a relatively not sterile but relatively calm, quiet, what have you, environment, right. Then they mentioned, he talked about the development of our players that go and play for, that represent our country, even in our U.S. youth system, right? How high school plays a significant factor when you talk about that eventual kid that might go and play for the U.S. Men's or women's national team, right? One of the youth national teams, right? High school plays a factor where high school provides an environment where that student athlete, for the first time, may have to go play in a tough foreign, quote unquote, foreign environment when they go and they play at their big rival school, right? In front of whatever, two, three, four, 500, 1,000 people, right? So that character piece, that builder, right? Getting used to something as simple, as little as that, right? And it may seem insignificant in the long run, but that was something that I had never thought about. That was such a great point. So, Coach Adams?
Yeah, it's crazy that I've been really blessed, as you guys know, the last 4 years of being able to go to Georgetown, and every year we've had a student bus that would, or a couple student buses actually, that would bring the kids down, and some of them would actually drive down. And I can't tell you the number of times where a kid would come up to me and say, "Man, that was one of the most exciting games I've ever been to." And they're talking, both football and soccer, and that's a huge compliment, because you guys probably know that Salina's, that they've got a very exciting football program there that's won a lot of games and won a lot of state championships. So to have a kid come up and say that, that was just as exciting as going to a football game, I think, again, what Coach Johnson was saying, that is, it goes to show that if they show up, I think they'd have a good time. That this is a sporting venue that a lot of people are getting into. I mean, heck, here in the DFW area, we've got, I want to say, one, two, three, four professional teams now, with a fifth on the way. So soccer's here to stay. It's a big sport that's growing, and I think, Coach Johnson really hit the nail in the coffin there, and the fact that it'd be really awesome to start seeing these people show up to these games, because I think it would be, they'd really love coming out and watching. I guess the difficult part is that you guys down south don't have to deal with it as much, because in the wintertime it doesn't get so bad here. But I mean, heck, up there in the Panhandle, right? You see pictures of sometimes game time, and they got 6 inches of snow.
Yeah, they got snow. They got snow like 2-3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So, and up here in North Texas, same thing. That Lexi and I, we sometimes experience. Right, it seems like tournament week. Right, the first or second tournament week,
Yeah.
there's always some ice storm or something that's coming.
I was in Houston that week.
Never fails. Every stinking week. So you have to deal with that. So I get that part of it. It's kind of hard to sit there in the stands and freeze to death, but it sure would be nice to see some more folks out to watch our games.
Yeah, lots of great points. What's that newest one? It's Atletico Dallas.
Yes.
That's what it is, right? Right. Yeah.
Play-
I came across something with their plans for their complex just the other day. I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going to practice. they're going to practice at MoneyGram. I don't know if you're familiar, but that's one of the big fields here in the DFW area. So apparently they're going to train at MoneyGram, and they just signed a contract with the Cotton Bowl, which is where Trinity FC also plays, which is
right.
the second tier women's soccer team we have here in the area. Which, by the way, I went to a couple weekends ago, and that environment was freaking awesome. If you're in the DFW area and can go check out a Trinity FC game, please go do it, because it was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Well done, Alexi.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a little different route than these two guys. I think the showing up is definitely huge, and I have a lot of conversations similar to like Alexander's conversation of, a kid came to a game and he was like, "Hey man, that was really fun. That was cool. Like, when's y'all's next one?" And I'm like, "Dude, where you been, man? Like, come pull up to another one." But I'm gonna go a different direction. I'm gonna say like more like overall involvement. From more facets than just fan participation. I think in the next 5 years, what would be really cool is to see us maybe look a little bit like football. You know what I mean? Like, have some college coaches like at your practice, have some college coaches at your games, have your kids go to college visits and like a Friday night where they go, watch, some people do those kind of things, but
Right.
where that's so ingrained into our culture, I think that would be a really great next step for us, where the kids are so connected to, hey baby.
Hey, we got a special guest on the pod. All right.
It's like that video where the girl walks in and
But yeah, you were football
going into an
practices,
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, going into an environment where there's so much connection. There's, you're connected to colleges, you're connected to clubs. I'd love to see club guys just roll up to our high school games and like, man, like the environment's cool here. Like, I'm really glad that my club kid plays in an environment like this. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like just more overall cohesion. I think,
And I will say that. I will say that for the San Antonio area is just from the club perspective, right? I've had multiple club coaches from my players over my 2 years at MacArthur that went to our high school games, and then 3 college coaches that went to or from San Antonio. This is not external college coaches, right? Just from San Antonio, 3, and obviously we have multiple universities here, but 3, right, attending more than one match on more than one occasion. So I mean, lots of kudos on that front. Yeah.
I think like what Justin said is I think they're starting to realize the importance of it, because they obviously they go to the ECNL events and they see the highest level of soccer and they see the big time girls, big time guys, MLS next, whatever. But then they come to the high school game and they see how that kid is 365 and they realize like, man, I really got to stop signing these kids because they're so talented. I really got to start signing these kids because they do all the little things right. They're great in the weight room. They're a great classroom kid. They're doing XYZ correctly.
Yep.
They start realizing that because I've taught, the 3 or 4 college guys that were at that USSFB license. I was like, what are you guys looking for? What do you guys want out of kids? And they were like, man, like we're just tired of getting burned by kids that are talented and they got no drive, or they're talented and they got no work ethic. They're talented and they can't tie their shoes, like they can't cook a bowl of ramen, like they're like, we're tired of having those kind of kids, man. We want well-rounded kids that care about athletics and care about academics, you know what I mean? Like, and so I think just what 5 years would look like for us in Texas high school soccer is getting into a culture where like everybody's just, hey man, like what do you need from me? What do you need from me? Let's all coexist. Let's let club and high school be great. Let's let college guys come watch a freaking practice in the middle of the day if you're not doing anything. Just come to our practice and see how she looks in a normal
Yeah.
setting. I mean, just stuff like that. And
Mhm.
football does a really good job of that. You see, hey, thanks SMU for showing up to our practice today. Hey, thanks Baylor for showing up to our practice today. And I would love to see some of that in the soccer world, because I think it would make kids want to go play college soccer. I think it would make
Yeah.
kids want to be interested in the next level, or watching USL Dallas on TV, watching SAFC on TV. If some of those people were showing up every once in a while to your stuff, you know what I mean? So
Right, right. Yeah, and we're going to get to the college soccer piece in a minute. But yeah, I mean, so many great points, to hit on. But yeah, I agree. Things are evolving, obviously, at a rapid pace. Next one, Coach. Yeah, all three of you, kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, thoughts. Anything you want to expand on, you can keep it short, sweet, to the point, or you can expand on it if you like. But D1, D2 split and the mercy rule. We're 1 year in. Yay or nay?
do both of them. Do one and then do the other one.
Oh, you want to go one at a time?
Yeah.
D1,
Yeah.
D2 split. Yay or nay? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm on the fence with that one. I go back and forth.
you're on the fence. Yeah, ask you in a year, right?
I'm on the fence for just one reason. I really loved having state tournaments where we had 4 representatives of the state and we got to play a state tournament. I think that was really special. And I think when we took that away and just had a state final, I think that lost a little bit of its specialness, in my
Yeah.
opinion. That would be really cool if we could have like Georgetown and Round Rock, or Austin and Leander as like 2 sites that are right next to each other, and we could have like girls state right here, right next door, and boys state right here, and we could still have the 4 representatives. I just think that would be so special to get back to that, because I think that's what made state special. And
Yeah.
so I love the split because there's more people winning, there's more people involved, and I'm all about that. But I just want to see that, like, I feel like it lost a little bit of its love this year, than it had.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a topic of conversation at state, right? At the state championships, and spoke about it with a lot of coaches, and yeah, and that trade off is maybe turning that in a little bit for the opportunity that we had. What, 8 or 9, maybe it might have been 9 of our state champions were first time state champions, right? And we had some unbelievable finals. I still go back to the best. So the best match I've seen at the state level, right, has been. I still go back to that Salina, Midlothian Heritage match when Salina won their first state title, right? Hands
game.
down the best match. Now, what
Insane.
probably rivaled that the closest was maybe this past year in that Walnut Grove, Prosper Walnut Grove Southwest match. That match was unbelievable. A lot of questionable calls, obviously, unfortunately. But that what game isn't, right? What game isn't, doesn't have its handful of questionable calls. But yeah, I agree. A lot of interesting stuff. So, anybody else expand on that anymore? D1, D2, or
I mean, I was kind of happy that just personally that it happened this year, because we got to play the Division II winner twice in our tournament. So to beat them twice and then be on top of Division I for our program this last year, it made us feel like we were the best 4A team in the
Yeah.
state of Texas because we literally played everybody we possibly could have played, including the Division II champion, and beat them. So
Yeah.
it solidified our places as that top tier team. So, and that's, you know, and that's obviously a situation that doesn't happen every year, but in that particular situation, that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Coach Johnson, anything else to add or no? Or jury's
Yeah,
still
I mean, my stigma to it is like I think the intent of grouping the larger schools and the smaller schools is great, but it just doesn't work out that way in the end. And so, I think about there's a lot of scenarios with the D1 D2 split where you may be a big school in one district where the two small schools in the neighboring district are actually larger population wise than you. And so the intent sounds great, but I think in reality it doesn't really play out that way.
Yeah, I want to build on that because Hector had a really good friend of mine, Rudy Moreno, is the head boys coach of Poteet. I'm an alumni of Poteet in Mesquite, Texas, and right outside of Dallas, and they lost in the regional finals to Highland Park, and it was supposed to be 5A D2. Highland Park was in 6A boys soccer like 2 years ago.
last year?
So it just didn't make any sense to me that Mesquite Poteet with 1,400 guys is playing Highland Park with 2,300 kids right on the 6A cusp in the regional final. It was like, why did we even do a split when a school that's 6 kids away from the split, or 6 kids away from the 6A classification is playing somebody with 1,400 people? Like, that makes no sense at all. And
Right.
so for me, I agree with Justin. I think that's got to be cleaned up a little bit because it was like, man, that ruined that, like, robbed the moment for those Mesquite Poteet kids, because they could have been at state. I mean, if they could have played somebody maybe smaller or not as big time, and maybe they would have had the opportunity to go win that game. You know what I mean, and then go to state final and maybe win that as well. I would have loved to see Mesquite play at Leander because Leander didn't do very well versus Highland Park. It was a really quality team that could also win
Yeah.
that game as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, like he said, I think there's still some problems to fix in that for sure, though. So
Right. Awesome. Our second surprise guest of the podcast tonight. I like that. I got that bark in there. So yeah, I mean, I get it. I think the simple one could be, and I don't think first thing we've got to understand is there is no one quick fix. There is no perfect fix. Got to get that out of there, right? I don't think that exists. But one of the simpler ones, it's a work in progress. We know no changes are going to happen in between a reclassification, cycle, right? So maybe we see something for what would be the 26-27 year when a new realignment happens, a new reclassification cycle happens. But it does seem like it could be a relatively simple one to make it, make the D1, D2 split before the season begins, right before the school year begins. I think that I don't know if that solves all your issues, but I think that kind of helps level the playing field a little bit more, right? So I don't know. More to come on that one. Next one, mercy rule. Thoughts on this one? So we'll start with you, Justin.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do like the mercy rule, just in that there's some districts where there's really lopsided matchups, and I don't think there's any reason to drag that game out, especially if it's a long travel night. Um, I'd like to think that there's not a need for it, and that my perspective on it as a coach is I can control the game from getting out of hand goal wise in the way that I coach my team. Um, but I do feel there's no reason to demoralize a team by going and putting 15 goals in the back of the net. Right? Eight is enough. You've made your point.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach Adams?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to coach Taylor Z, before she's at Tech now.
Right.
And when she set that record of 136 or whatever it was goals in the season, that obviously, that's probably never going to happen ever again because of their mercy rule. So I think that's good for soccer, to go and beat a team that bad, especially coaching on the girls' side. You hate to see demoralized young ladies on the other side of the field, and I know it probably has nothing to do with their sex. It's probably the same thing for male coaches too. That It's
Mhm.
just it's no fun seeing you're in the business of kids and building kids up, and to see kids just totally beaten down and given up, and they can't get off that field fast enough that's just not good for soccer. And unfortunately, I think the mercy rule is probably geared towards 4A and probably some of the inner city
Right.
schools. Um, but I think it's a good rule to have in place for that, just because again, no coach is in. You would hope that no coach is sitting there going, "Man, I can't wait to score 15 goals on this team tonight." That's
Mhm.
in my opinion, kind of sorry. So
Yeah, and that's a great point. That's a great point. And you had some people who were starting to, because you really didn't see it at. I'm not going to say it was non-existent at the 6A level, but you really didn't see it at the 6A level. 5A level, hit or miss on occasional. But but the narrative was, let's be real, the narrative was that this was largely implemented because of some of the stats that we were seeing at the 4A, right? Some of the score lines we were seeing at the 4A level.
right.
So one of those that was posed was like, hey, next cycle, should it be implemented for just 4A? And yeah, I don't see that happening, right? Either you're going to have it or you're not, right? But
Right.
that's a whole other conversation. Those are typically the conversations that take place at coaching school, and we'll get to that a little bit in a minute as well, but Tasco as well. But those are typically the conversations that take place at coaching school as well as in Austin during when we have the legislative meetings. So, Alexa.
Yeah, I mean, I just agree 100%. I mean, it's so necessary for the game. We're in the job of building kids up and praising kids and motivating kids, and so to look on the other side, seeing a kid just totally dejected. Me and Alexander have a lot of experience in that because before and in his district on the girls' side, that's not very. It's some of it's good, but some of it's not very good. And then in my district on the boys' side, some of it's you two or three teams are really special and compete with us, and then three or four are not very good, and we go score 7, 8, 9 goals. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
Yeah.
was a part of some of the committee too that was trying to help start some of that 3A soccer stuff, and trying to get numbers and generate revenue for that and interest for that. So those guys don't want to be in UIL because they don't want to go play games and they don't want to lose 8-0, 10-0, 12-0. A lot of those guys like play outlaw schedules or just play club schedules and just go play 8 or 9 games or stuff like that because they don't want to go get smashed. And so if we're going to try to promote the game, what does the game look like in 5 years? It hopefully looks like 3A soccer too. There needs to be more
Right.
communities playing soccer, and so the Mercy Rule was great for that. It was a great first step of saying, hey, we're not going to kill anybody. We want everybody to play soccer and have a good time and enjoy themselves, and we want more people involved in the game because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were going the other way before the Mercy Rule.
Right.
A lot of people were, all right, let's get out. 3A, some 3As, some small fours. All right, let's not have a soccer program. We suck at it. Let's get out. You
Yeah.
know, so
And that's
and
what
so
we didn't want to see.
yeah,
Right.
and that's what we don't want to see. We want to see more schools involved. And
Right.
so, I think it was a tremendous addition to
Mm-hmm.
UIL for sure. So.
Question here from Rafa is: do the coaches see? I don't know if he's expanding on this a little bit, but do the coaches see a D1, D2 split for the districts in the coming realignment in 2026? I'm wondering if he's referencing a preseason split, maybe what we had mentioned.
I've heard a rumor that we may align with football, and so that like whatever football has, we keep it, and we'll be just exactly like how their setup is. I don't know if there's any validity or truth to that, but that's an interesting take that I've heard from a couple of
Mm.
people.
Now, but football still continues to do the post postseason split for 6A, right? Isn't 4A and 5A isn't 5A on down totally different from 6A? I think, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
that
I
is
don't
true.
know.
6A does the split after district standings, whereas 5A and below does the pre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the pre is interesting. I think it's a
Mhm.
different. If we're gonna truly do D1, D2, you might as well do the pre. You might as well have schools that are D1, schools that are D2, and go that
Right.
way because then we don't
Gotcha.
run into the problem of Mesquite Poteet with 1,300 kids is playing Highland Park with 2,300 kids, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, how did this even happen? It
Right.
won't happen because it's already set when the season starts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So, and I think, and I'll have to share a video with you guys with our, I'm drawing a blank. I'm having a bad day with names today, but the new executive director of the UIL, uh, last summer, when I was at coaching school, got a great video of him that was captured through Dave Campbell's, uh, when he's talking about what the necessary needs are for a 7A to eventually happen. So I still think we are probably about two, at least two, if not three cycles away from seeing a 7A. So remind me, I'll share that video with you guys. Really good video. All right, we start wrapping up here. Coaching school, and as well Tasco convention. You know, we got coaching school that's coming up here next month here in San Antonio. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on attending? What are your takeaways on that? Both coaching school and Tasco. We'll start with you, Coach Adams.
Yeah, THSCA it was kind of cool that they were, they really gave a good effort in to try to get soccer in there, and really not just soccer but all sports. It was kind of cool to walk around there. I have to admit, there was one time where I think it may have been like a Baylor coach or something that was volleyball, and it was just cool to sit there and watch somebody that's a high level.
I do that all the time.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
just watch a volleyball clinic, and I'm like, I don't even know volleyball, but this is
right.
sweet. Yeah.
Just because I think as a coach to see like I love being able to watch another coach and just see like how they command a training session or how they command
Right.
themselves on the field. Like it's cool, and it kind of offers some insight sometimes into maybe some self-reflection. So the THSCA was awesome. I really hope that they do some of the stuff that they were trying to do this last year, because it was really cool. I really like the symposium stuff where you could go in and listen to the coaches speak and do different things. That was really cool. So I'm hoping hoping they do that again this year. And Tasco always, I mean, that's always a home run in my opinion. Even if you go down there and maybe you only pick up one new drill or something, just the be able to go out down there and bond with all your fellow coaches in the state is super awesome. And I'll tell you, like, I've over the last few years have started, just because of the success I've had, them seeing Salina. I've all of a sudden got new Facebook friends of guys that live 800 miles away from me, and it's really cool to have that, to be able to meet new coaches and establish that professional relationship with guys that you don't even live by is super cool. And Tasco is a big supporter of that. So
Absolutely.
Big supporter of Tasco.
Yeah, coaching school is an interesting environment. There was a while back in Houston, right? I'm sitting there minding my own business. I'm waiting on something on the phone, and some guy, a football coach, comes by, sits next to me, and we have a conversation for a couple of minutes, just random, nothing in particular. Great little conversation, and yeah, you seem like a pretty good guy. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. It was Nick Saban, I think was his name. So pretty interesting, just random, completely random. And I was just like, man, it really took a second for me to realize who I was talking to here. But pretty cool stuff. Coach Johnson, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the football world, coaching school, THSCA coaching school has been a big part of what I've done the last 8 years. I'm going to keep going. I think it's great. They're working hard to build the soccer side of things. I've got a buddy that works with THSCA that's telling me they're going to try and make every soccer talk in a venue where they can demo this year, which would be really, really cool. But even outside of the soccer, I take a lot away from it. I like to go watch a basketball coach that's going to talk about building culture, because that's going to cross over into what I do with my soccer program.
Absolutely.
To me, coaching school doesn't have to be about picking up some new drill that you're going to put into practice. There's lots of ways to get that information anyway, but I like to go talk to culture. I like to fellowship with other coaches. I like to see what I can take away from all of these really successful individuals that are meeting in one location. And it's not always a drill. It's not always a new game model, but a lot of times I am able to pick something up that I want to do culture-wise, or a new way of holding kids accountable, something along those lines.
Yeah, just like any certification course you go to, I've often learned that the real, right, all my years, all my different badges, all my different licenses that I went through, when it finally dawned on me and I started to really like going to them, it was when it dawned on me that all the real learning, all the long term takeaways that I get from these that make me a better person and better coach, all that learning happens from my colleagues, my peers, right? Not, yeah, whatever we got, whatever, we take a lot of great takeaways from instructors, your personal instructor, whoever your lead instructor may be, what have you, all this stuff. But that interaction, that fellowship, as we call it, with fellow coaches, and just it's like, hey, here's my experience with this. What about you? What are you, and I mean, like you cannot put a price. Those things are priceless, right? Every year, just one huge takeaway, and it always comes from a peer, a colleague, not the actual course itself. So yeah, Alexi.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both fantastic. Like you said, it's the fellowship of the coaches. I mean, and I've been, I've been fortunate enough to speak at both. You called me a culture guru or something like that the first 10, 15 minutes. And so I had the
Oh yeah, I
opportunity,
forgot about that. Yeah, yeah.
I've had the opportunity to speak culture at both. And I think what's wild is how different they are on the soccer level. THSC
Mhm.
is still working to develop soccer, quality and quantity and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to Tasco is just solely soccer, and you're just learning so much about soccer, and you're getting dudes from England come over and things like that, and it's just an incredible experience. And then yet how incredibly similar they are in the culture, in the connectiveness, in the networking. I mean, those two are just right
Right.
here hand in hand. Because you go to Tasco and communicate with people, and you go to THSCA and communicate with people, and I think they both offer two really different perspectives. Like you said, it's so cool. Like Alexander said, I'll like walk by volleyball, and I don't, like I just admire it. Like it's just
Mhm.
so cool. It's just so cool to watch how a coach commands this space and how they talk to kids and how they praise kids, or offer a different angle of look or whatever. It's
Yeah.
so cool to see, and it's so cool to see it in so many different sports because
Right.
everything translates. You just have to figure out how to apply it to your kids.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
leadership and management assessment. That's what it really is, right? And as we all know, coaches, doesn't matter whether it's soccer, football, doesn't matter, right? We're all master thieves. We steal from each other, right? The good pieces, the pieces that we feel we can apply that will work for us, right? And rightfully so. That's why I say the best learning comes from fellow colleagues and peers, right? So
but
and
it's just
so will you guys be going, Alexi, Coach Adams, will you guys be attending this year?
yeah.
I'll be
I'm
there.
working.
Yeah.
I'm working on trying to get it with my district that I just moved into. So hopefully
Gotcha.
the answer to that is yes.
Gotcha. Nice plug there. Nice. I
Yeah.
like that. So
No
um,
pressure.
It's supposed to be a plug, but yeah.
I got to meet Coach Justin now. Coach Johnson, he seems like a good dude. So I got to go down
Yeah,
there and find this guy.
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
yeah,
Hey, San
absolutely.
Antonio, we're ready to host you.
Absolutely. And then it
I
goes
love going.
one
I
more
love
year in
going
San
to San
Antonio
Antonio.
and then back to Houston next year. Right.
I
So,
love going to the San Antonio one. No offense to Houston, but the San Antonio one is just so much more. There's just such a better vibe and presence, and everybody seems to have a much better time. Not saying there's anything wrong with Houston,
yeah.
but it just seems like there's just so much more enjoyment. People are walking the river walk, and it just once again, no offense to Houston, but I would really love to see maybe like Dallas, San Antonio, or something like that. I mean, I know Dallas is in a central location, or maybe I don't know what the other Austin, San Antonio, or but it just seems like there's so much fun happening when the San Antonio one rolls around, and not that there's not in Houston, but it's just on another level. It's just really special because
Mhm.
everybody seems so happy and friendly, and oh yeah, what's up, man?
Mhm.
And then the Houston one, it's like you still feel that a little too, but you just don't. I don't know. San Antonio's got a really special energy, and y'all have a pretty cool city. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I agree. I agree.
yeah.
No, also nothing against Houston. I love Houston on a lot of levels,
Mhm.
but yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you on that one. But yeah, I think the big thing there with coaching school too is for soccer coaches everywhere listening is oftentimes my conversations with a lot of coaches are, hey, I go to Tasco, so therefore I don't go to coaching school. If you're not going to coaching school, right, you're legitimately missing out because if nothing else beyond what we just discussed, you're now having conversations with big picture people outside of soccer at the state level who sometimes they need to hear your input, whether it's about the D1, D2 split, whether it's about the mercy rule, whether it's about when our season is played, all these number of issues that our sport may have, you can now bounce it off of and have these conversations with big picture people across the state of Texas, across different sports, and you'll be amazed at what you take out of it. So definitely, if you are not registered to go, ensure you are going to both coaching school, which is next month in July here in San Antonio, as well as the Tasco convention, which is just outside of the United Soccer Coaches has really separated itself as probably the premier coaches convention in the country, right? So that says a lot about our Tasco organization and our board members. So big kudos to them as well. So
1000%. My USSFB
yeah.
instructor was from Maryland, and he talked about the Tasco convention. He was like, man, I went there once, like 3 or 4
Mhm.
years ago, and he was like, it was like going to the USC. And I was like, dang, for real? And he was like, yeah, it was special. He was like, there's 5,000 people there, and everybody was about learning. He was like, that is one of the premier places to go in the entire nation. And I was like, dang, I didn't really know. Like, it's just second nature for me. It's just in my backyard, just drive down to Galveston or whatever. So but then you hear somebody from 12 states away talking about how special it is. Like, that's powerful. That shows that we have people that care a lot about our development in Texas. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one final question, the wild card question here that I have for you is so, and like I said, we can be brief on this one because I know we've been at it for a good bit now. So, and rightfully so, great conversation. But the state of college sports and therefore college soccer, right? College soccer came up a few times in our conversation today, but revenue sharing law just officially went into effect a couple of nights ago. It finally was passed. And then now the official rise and launch of the College Sports Commission. We now have a new commissioner who comes from the MLB side of the world, and all of those things and the impact on just college sports as we know it, college football, the revenue sports, and then of course your Olympic sports, i.e., college soccer. Any thoughts on that so far? Because yeah, I get it. It's a mess, but any thoughts, Justin?
That's one that I've been looking at really, really closely.
Right.
With my daughter's going to be a senior this year, and so she's been going through the whole recruiting process through the past year, and kind of one of those things that I wish I had the magic ball that's going to tell me everything. And looking at that crystal ball, I don't. I think we kind of just got to wait and see how it's
Yeah.
going to play out. Um, I think at the highest levels, at the Division I levels, it may end up hurting soccer a little bit. And that the funding may not be there the way that it was before. But overall, with the college landscape, something that I've been trying to portray to my programs that I work with is there's a lot of opportunity out there, especially on the girls' side. And if you get rid of that mindset that it's got to be that Power Four school or it's got to be that Division I school, and you start looking at all the other great opportunities out there, the D2s, the D3s, the NAIs, and the JUCOs, there's lots of opportunity to go play at the next level. And I
Right.
want to keep encouraging these young women to take advantage of those opportunities to get to play the game they love for 4 more years.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Coach Adams.
Yeah, it's a tough it's a tough situation because with soccer not being one of the big revenue sports in college, they're probably not going to benefit as much off of this as the other sports are. And you I don't know, like recently you saw that one girl, she's a 14-year-old girl that played NWSL. Did you guys see that? The girl
Mhm.
she
Oh yeah.
yeah, that to me, in my opinion, is kind of uh, kind of shows the problem, I guess, of what what the whole thing is that how do we handle amateurism, right? Like how do we make it to where college sports isn't turning into an amateur sport, but then at the same time encouraging some of the better athletes to actually go to college and not go be a 14-year-old kid
Yeah.
playing in a professional league. That
Well,
that's kind
the rules and definitions of to be amateur and amateurism, as it is stated by the NCAA, is basically dead. It's no longer in effect, right? It's no longer exists. And the other part about it is what used to distinguish the NCAA was the power, right? The authority. It had its teeth and it no longer has that, right? It really doesn't. So the only thing I can think of is in some sort of power move is to try to because really their cash cow, their moneymaker right now is March Madness, right? The men's and women's
right.
tournament, particularly the men's basketball tournament. Outside of that, you maybe have baseball, softball, and then volleyball. But then outside of that, I don't know. Do they try to, in some sort of power grab, do they try to create a whole new alignment of for the the Olympic sports, right? I.e., college soccer. I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot of questions to be had, and that's kind of why I wanted to get y'all's take.
It's kind of it's turned into the wild wild west. You know, it really has. That you really don't you really don't know what to think of it all, because used to, you know, there's kind of like a guy the other day who was listening to a sports show that I listened to. He was talking about how, you know, the interest in NCAA basketball has really gone down because there's no investment in the players. Like players, they can just play for a year and then they go. And you know, in sports, you fall in love with players. That's what, you know. People don't go buy inner you know, Miami jerseys for them. They buy Messi jerseys. You know, I mean, it's about branding, and when you're getting into a point where all of a sudden all that stuff's being lost, right? And you throw in the boosters that can do, you know, whatever they want. It's just it's really made the whole NCAA a big mess. And I think, you know, kind of what you said, that it's made them powerless. And let's be honest, there's probably going to get to a point where it's probably going to dissolve. And you know, they talk about, you know, there being two divisions um, in college, where you'd have the Power Five conferences as one division, then everybody else, and then there'd be new championships for this Power Five conferences, and then, you know, a new championship for the, you know, the everybody else conferences, just because they're starting to acknowledge how unfair of a playing field this is all turning out to be, because of all the revenue
Right.
sharing, the NIL, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I still think we're eventually, inevitably, somewhere down the road. Maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's 5 years from now, but I still think that there's somewhere down the road we're headed to high level court, if not the Supreme Court, as it relates to Title IX. I really do. I inevitably do. I just don't know when. So,
Right.
Lexi, thoughts? Perfect.
It's,
Perfect.
I mean, you know, I agree with Alexander Adams. It's the wild, wild west, and it hurts because, you know, you grew up, all four of us grew up in a world where, like, we wanted college to be what, you know, we wanted to take our next step there. You know, we want to send kids there. We want to, you know, as a player, maybe you wanted to go there. Man, I want to
Mhm.
play for SMU or Houston Baptist or Baylor, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, and now it's kind of like kids don't even really necessarily want to do it as much anymore. That's not even what, you know, some guys are like, hey, can I try to go overseas? Or, hey, like, there's USL opportunities now. Can I just go play USL Atletico Dallas? You know what I mean? You know, and so I think there's a lot of people kind of getting away from it because it is the wild, wild west, and people are just not about it anymore. You know, they don't really see the interest anymore. They see all the craziness and the transfer portal and this and that, and they're just like, hey, I don't want
Yeah,
to.
that's a
So
whole other
yeah, a
conversation.
whole other can of worms right
Yeah,
there. So,
yeah,
you know, so it's a lot. And for me, you know, I just try to tell kids all the time, you know, go somewhere where you're going to have an opportunity to be successful, to where you're going to get an education that's, you know, predominantly or mostly free. And how does it benefit you, and how does it help you? And
hmm
I think, you know, if you can go with that mindset, then hopefully you can be successful. But it's a lot, man. It's so much going on. And I agree with you. I think there's going to be a point where somebody brings a hammer down and says, this is the way we're going to do it. This is what we're going to change, and we're going to go
yeah,
from here.
yeah.
I mean,
It's
if you really
still
look
a
like
lot more. The lawsuits that are still coming, that, yeah.
and if you look like from a soccer perspective, I mean, really, men's soccer in college, you know, there's really not. I mean, there's some programs out there that exist, but really the avenue is MLS next, or you go and play for an academy, and that's what the whole world does, you know.
Yeah.
And then and this starts a conversation with like national team stuff. So then how do you, you know, America has started to try to adopt, you know, getting away from the college model and starting to do the, you know, the academies and you know, go like having a league specifically for professional soccer for the United States. And what the heck, man, you look at the Gold Cup and nobody wants to play it, right? Like,
Yeah,
so, so,
yeah.
you know, it's I mean, you know, kind of gotten off topic here, but um, it's just, again, it's tough to,
It's a
it's
tough
tough.
world. It's tough right now. It's just, yeah,
Oh,
and there's a lot of questions, and there's more unknowns than knowns. Yeah, I get it, and that's kind of why I ask that too. Just, and because it's fresh, because it just kind of came down. Like, what are your thoughts? What are your takeaways? What are you maybe seeing, or what's in the back of your mind that you're not hearing people mention? So, yeah, tough one for sure. But all right. Big shout out, by the way, to our listeners. We're being listened to on all our platforms by over 300 live listeners. We're being listened to in Corpus Christi, out in Killeen, Conroe, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, as well as out in Midland, Odessa. So, big thank you to all our listeners, all our supporters everywhere. Make sure you like, rate, subscribe. We jump on YouTube as well. If you're not a subscriber, YouTube channel, that's our channel that we're focused on trying to grow. Make sure you go on there, subscribe, hit that bell for the live notifications, and you won't miss anything because 99.9% of everything we do is live. So you get everything. It's all organic. It's all authentic. You see all our screw ups and mishaps. Everything, you get to see it all. So we don't hide behind that. So thank you to all our listeners and supporters. Really appreciate you guys as we start to wrap up here. So before we get to our stoppage time, our shout outs and thank yous that each of you get to give, coaches, this is that opportunity, right? That opportunity where you guys get to, after me peppering you guys with, countless questions for almost 2 hours, you guys get to fire one question back my way, whatever it is. I'm a Virgo, so if you were thinking about asking that, sorry, okay, too late. But one question you got for me, whatever you'd like. We'll start with you, Coach Johnson.
Well, why don't I just open the floor for you a little bit? We've all got an opportunity to talk about our new programs. Tell us a little bit about your transition to your new program.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the transition has been awesome. This is the first time where I really had to experience that kind of dual transition piece where I was still at one school with one program, wrapping that up while getting ready to go to another school and kind of already working on things over there as well. So that was a little different. That was new, relatively new to me from that perspective. Whereas everything, even including my time at the college level, everything was typically you stop completely at one job before you pick up at another job. So that was my first time experiencing that, and it was, that was different. That was kind of as you're wrapping that up with. As you're wrapping that as you're wrapping that up with a school year, you got graduation, all those things, all the things that come with ending a school year, and then of course to top it all off, my daughter playing for me and graduating as well, a senior, that just added one more layer to it. So long story short, that's kind of part of the reason why we went 2 months without a without a podcast episode. That and our couldn't just had a hard time getting our champions the champion series off the ground because there was so many more champions. It was double from what we had previously had. So trying to get schedules aligned. We're not saying no that it won't happen, but we'll have to see if coaches are still open to it over the course of this summer. But anyway, that's
Yeah. Some
why.
coaches leave and put new colors on and go to different places. Like,
But they still walk around with their same medals, man. So, but yeah, no, I think the transition has been great. Was really not easy for me to leave MacArthur, right? And just so many great people, just great people, and salt of the earth kind of people, and it was a tough decision. It was a decision that was made for in the best interest for my family at that time, and not easy, but excited to go to Canyon now, where if I was going to leave a place like MacArthur, it was going to have to be for equally great people, everything that we've talked about, right? That support from administration, phenomenal athletic coordinator and assistant athletic coordinator, Coach McAuliffe and Coach Sanders, and then Coach Davis or Mr. Davison, not Coach Davison, our principal as well, and then Coach Martinez, our Comal ISD AD, just a phenomenal support staff, administration, leadership that I'm excited to work for, and then our parents and our players, right? Just a great vibe. I'm excited and I'm ready to go. So very excited. So yeah, hope that answers your kind of question a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
So all right, Coach Adams.
What's your social security number?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm so old. There's only 8 digits in my social security.
What do you got planned for the summer?
Man, it's going to be busy. It's going to be got a lot of podcasts to do. Obviously, got another one coming out tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. We will put that out in a little while. But got another one tomorrow, and then I'm actually working on getting. So I'm getting my CDL finally during over the course of this summer. So getting my CDL. I got two camps, two summer camps for our sixth or ninth graders, which is going to be at the end of this month, and then our third through fifth graders, which is going to be next month, end of next month. It's right, pretty much as soon as coaching school ends. So I got all of that going on. Plus, coaching school is sandwiched in there as well. And then a lot of skill sessions and open field sessions with my new group as I try to kind of get to know my personnel and see what I have as well. So I'm excited. It's a great group. It's an exciting group. They had a great season last year in spite of overcoming a lot of issues, and I'm excited. So yeah, that's my summer is going to be busy, man. My summer. I got back from a much earlier return than expected trip from Europe from Spain. And but yeah, we got some good news out of it though. Even
You
though
play for Real Madrid.
yeah, I was on loan to be one of the coaches on the coaching staff for Real Madrid, but some new guy named Xabi Alonso showed up, so they said, "Hey, try us back later." So we'll see. So, Alexi,
My question is kind of, we talk about professional development and growth and things like that. Where does 50/50 podcast take its next step in terms of professional growth and development and getting bigger and better? Where is that step?
I don't. Well, so eventually, the plan was to get this website off the ground this summer. I don't know if that's going to happen. The website inevitably, but really, one of the things that I'm looking for, one of the things that we want to do is expand this network, and so find people that are passionate about doing this, passionate about our sport, passionate about doing because this is work, man. This is hard work. The podcast piece, right? Making it happen, and trying to expand our network, right? Somebody who can cover, maybe it's another podcast under the 50/50 podcast network umbrella that likes talking something different as it relates to our sport, right? That's kind of maybe where we're looking as far as that goes. So we'll see. I know there was the coaches consortium right later this month in Waxahachie. Don't know if we will be there for that yet. I'm still talking to to the coaches there. Have been they've been gracious with us and welcoming us out there. We just don't know the logistics of the setup for us to allow us to be there is going to happen. So professionally speaking, a lot of things, a lot of reading, man. Always doing reading. That's the big one. So I'm a big giant nerd when it comes to that. So we'll see. We'll see. Lots of things, but excited to have a lot more good. We got 2 months worth of catching up to do on the podcast with great guests such as yourselves. But if you know somebody that would be a great captivating guest that should be on this podcast, you guys let us know. I'd appreciate it. So, yeah.
I think you should be like, I don't know if you watch TST at all, if you watch the soccer tournament at all, but I think you should be like Pat McAfee and just have like a little booth in the corner and just be able to but at the state tournament, so people could just
Yeah.
come hop into your podcast while the game's going on.
Concave, call it the Team Concafa.
Okay, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, something like that, that'd be legit.
Wasn't that tonight? Wasn't the final tonight? Or was that
Yeah.
yesterday?
No, the semis were yesterday. I don't know if the finals tonight or tomorrow night, but
Yeah. I thought it wrapped up like either yesterday or today. So
yeah.
gotcha. There's Rafa complaining about his jersey, the Real Madrid jersey. So awesome. Well, no, coaches. Hey, I appreciate the question back. As much as I hate getting questions back, but no, I appreciate that. I figured it's only fair. But as we start to wrap up here, coaches, really want to thank you guys for your time. And one of the last things that we like to wrap up our show with is, which is customary, is our stoppage time. Any shout outs, thank yous, anything that's on your mind as it relates to the game that we didn't already discuss. We want to give you guys the opportunity where the floor is yours. Coach Adams, the 4-time state champion coach, we'll start with you.
Well, I guess since I'm starting a new page in my career, I guess shout out to all the families and players out there in Salina. I appreciate the last 4 years. It was a blessing, and I can't begin to express how big of a deal it was professionally to be a part of all that, and how exciting everything was. And I can't express enough of how grateful I am to Coach Bill Elliott for the opportunity out there in Salina. And sorry, I got my wife's bird crawling all over me. And I just I
Dude, what is that? I thought that was your curtain moving. What is
know
I
that?
thought
Oh
it
my
was too.
God.
my wife's
Oh
dumb
my
bird.
God.
I hate this darn thing. I bought it for her birthday one year because she talked about how much she loved having a cockatiel when she was younger. And
Just when I thought you couldn't amaze me more. You're on there. Dude, this is our third special guest on the podcast tonight. Awesome.
yeah,
Love that.
so
As long as you don't tell me it was the bird that barked, then we're good. So,
yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
So shout out to that, and of course shout out to everybody in Keller. Can't be more excited to be a part of that school district. Can't be more excited to be a part of the athletic administration that's there in Keller, and of course everybody, particularly at Timber Creek High School. I am excited to be a Falcon and can't wait to get this year started. So
You
go
got a
Falcons!
live falcon on his shoulder, you know.
That is
Yeah,
awesome. That is awesome. Big shout out there to Coach Adams, the new head women's soccer coach of the Timber Creek Falcons. Great job. Alexi, thoughts?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of what Coach Adams says. I mean, just an incredible community that I got to be a part of for 7 years. It was a long time. I think when I got there, there was kind of these visions of me, being there for 2, 3 years and then moving on to the next place. And then you just go somewhere and you absolutely fall in love with people that take care of you and a community that supports and respects you. And, I'm still in my house in Sulphur Springs, you know what I mean? So, I love it.
Are you still in the middle of that moving? You haven't started the
Yeah.
moving process
Yeah. I
yet?
haven't started the moving process. It's still something that's really sensitive to me. I mean, and when people were telling me congratulations in the Sulphur Springs community, it almost hurt me more than I was excited about it. You know what I mean? Because you just create such a connection to people. And so shout out to, a great community that gave me everything. And my athletic director before, the one that I had right now, his name is Greg Owens. He gave me an opportunity at 22. I was really young, and and just to get an opportunity that early in your life and to spend 7 years somewhere is awesome. So the community was great, and just ready to start another chapter, but can't forget the one that I had. It was so special. So
Right. Awesome. Great stuff. All right, Coach Johnson, make the 210 proud. Bring it home. You're the last one. What do you
Yeah,
got?
well, I guess I'm going to keep spinning the same track, but Warren was something special. We created a family there. We were able to get to a point where we ended a 17-year playoff drought and became a program that people know now in the city and the broader
Right.
community. And so
Right.
that was something really, really special to be a part of, turning that program around and building it back up. So last thing I told the girls whenever I told the team that I was leaving was, I'm still there for you. I'm still a part of it. You still reach out to me anytime you need help. And that's true. So thank you so much to the Warren community and that team for everything they've given me the last 3 years. But I'm excited for this new chapter as well. And thank you to Coach Shaw and the Churchill community for putting their trust in me. And hopefully we can do the same thing there.
Awesome. Really appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for being so generous with your time. Over 2 hours. I will say it's been long, but it's gone by fast. Great conversation. We hit on a lot of good stuff. I really appreciate y'all's candor, but most of all, really appreciate y'all's time tonight as well. I wish all of you, all four of us, right, as we go through these new journeys in our first years. So, wish all of you guys the absolute, you and your program, your communities, your student athletes. Wish all of you guys the absolute best. So, best of luck to our listeners, our supporters. Thank you once again. I hit on all the things. Make sure like, rate, subscribe, follow us. You can follow us on Twitter X as Twix as we call it at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, and then as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. On YouTube, go on there, like, rate, subscribe, give us a rating. If you listen to the audio version of this podcast as well, you can find us on all major podcast platforms. And go on there, give us a rating as well. So if you think we're great, tell us. Share that with us. If you think we stink, make sure you send all those complaints to Rafa. Rafa oversees our complaint department. So I always say, jokingly, I always say that. So yeah. So all our listeners, all our supporters, and those of you who listened tonight and participated tonight, really appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much. My final thoughts. I will end on this. our, what is it, class of 2027, I think it is. Our student athletes, June 15th is what, 6 days away. That is not the end all be all, right? If you are not contacted on that day, it does not mean you are not an actual, a great player, right? A class player, nothing like that. Wish you all of you guys the best on that day, but more so, how do you respond and what are you about the next day on June 16th, right? Because that process continues. It doesn't all of a sudden end come June 15th if you're not contacted on June 15th, right? So, and just like I told coaches, right, student athletes, when you're talking with those coaching staffs, right, if you are lucky enough and blessed enough to get a call on June 15th, just remember you're interviewing them just as much as they are quote unquote interviewing you. So remember that. But yep, that is going to do it. Thank you for Coach Johnson, Coach Upton, Coach Adams for all of their respective programs. The women's program at San Antonio Winston Churchill. All right, the boys program, men's program out at Roy City, and the women's program out at Timber Creek. I thank you to all of you. I am your host, Coach Cano. Thank you again. Really appreciate you guys, and you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on X at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading